product of powers. This is another way for us to say multiplication. Product means that you're multiplying powers. That's what this means. Well, whenever you multiply powers, if they have the same base, that would be number 5. If they have the same base and you have multiplication between these two powers, the way how we're gonna get the answer is by adding the exponents. So 6 plus 2, that's how you're gonna get 8. And that's basically how we get the answer. Okay, but you must have the same base. Then the answer is by adding the two exponents. Now, this could be, by the way, only two numbers, right? You can see 5 squared times 5 to the 6th power, but the same thing happens if you use variables. On this case, if you don't see the variable, if you don't see the exponent is gonna be 1, like this one. So that means that the base is gonna be the variable a, and whenever you multiply these two powers, all what you do to get the answer is going to be adding the exponents. So 4 plus 1, you get 8 to the 5th power. All right? So, and that's basically how it works. Either you have numbers like 5 squared times 5 to the 6, or you also have variables. Now, a combination, it should be like this one. Now, on this case, we're multiplying -4 times -3. These are integers, so you can just go ahead and multiply them. What you do is you multiply the two signs. And can you see that the two signs are negative? Because they are negative, all what you do is multiply the two signs, and that means that you're going to cover the two signs that you have in that multiplication, and that tells you that the answer is going to be positive. Then multiply the two numbers. 4 times 3, that will be 12. Okay? And the next step, you multiply x times x to the third power. You don't see the exponent is going to be 1. So nothing will happen to the variable. This variable is the base. And to get the answer, all what you do is you're going to be adding the exponents. 3 plus 1, you're going to get 4. So this means 12 times x to the fourth power. So that's how we get the answer on this one. Okay. Now for the next one, for this one, we do the same thing. Multiplication is this little dot, and here you multiply -6 times 3. Can you see that they have different sign, right? Well, on this case, you multiply it, and we're gonna cover the two signs that you have in that multiplication. You multiply in a positive times a negative, and that tells you that the answer should be negative. Then multiply the two numbers. 6 times 3, that will be -18. And then the next step, we multiply k to the first. You don't see the exponent. The exponent is 1. And then times k to the fourth power. Nothing will happen to the base. The base is going to be k. Now, all what you do is add the exponents. 4 plus 1, you get k to the fourth power. So this will be the answer, and this means that -18 is multiplying k to the fourth power. The next one is e. Same thing. This is multiplication, and what we're going to do is multiply negative times a positive. We still have to multiply the two signs, and you're gonna cover the two signs that you have in that multiplication. So we're gonna cover then the positive and the negative, right? Positive and the negative, and that tells you that the answer should be negative. What you do next? Multiply the numbers. 6 times 4, you get 24. So the answer should be -24, and then multiply the two powers. X should be to the first power. Whenever you don't see the exponent is going to be 1. And to get the answer, all what you do is all what you do is add the exponents. 5 plus 1, you're going to get 6. Okay, and this will be the answer. The next one. Okay, so one more time, what we're gonna do is we're gonna be multiplying, and you always have to multiply the two signs. You multiply positive times a negative. Well, we're gonna cover the two signs that you have in that multiplication. And that tells you that the answer should be negative. And now multiply the two numbers. 7 times 4. Shouldn't that be 28? Once you multiply the two integers, what you're gonna do next, you're gonna multiply the powers. On this one, a, okay? So can you see that you don't have another a variable a or another power with the base is gonna where the base is gonna be a, and don't get rid of it. This one should be in your answer. But then b to the first power, remember, you don't see the exponent is gonna be 1. And then this one is gonna be multiplying b squared. Well, nothing will happen to the base. The base is b, and to get the answer, or what you're gonna do is add the two exponents, 2 plus 1, you get 3. So this means that 28 is multiplying a and then multiplies b to the third power. All of this is multiplication. Same thing happens here. Negative 24 times x to the sixth power. Just remember, all of that is multiplication. Okay? And now let's do the last one. For this one, uh, they can actually write it using this little dot. So it should look like this. Negative 3 times x squared times y. And all of this is also multiplying all of this, which is going to be negative 4 times x times y to the third power. These two, they mean the same thing. It means that you have multiplication between all of this, right? So, but they can write it with parentheses or they can use this little dot. But the work is going to be exactly the same. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna be multiplying and the work will be exactly the same. So on this case, can you see that you're multiplying two negatives? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cover the two signs that I have in that multiplication. That tells you that the answer should be positive. After you multiply the two signs, what you're gonna do is you're gonna multiply the two numbers. 3 times 4. Let me write it here right next to it. 3 times 4, the answer should be 12. Okay? Then multiply x squared times x. But if you don't see the exponent is going to be 1. Nothing will happen to the base. The base is going to be x. To get the answer, or what you're going to do is you're going to add the two exponents. So you're going to be adding 2 plus 1. That's how you're going to get 3. And then you're gonna be multiplying y to the first. This is the exponent that we don't write, but it's gonna be here whenever we need it. That's when we're gonna write it, at least for now that you're learning this. And then this will be y to the first times y to the third power. All right? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna keep the base. Nothing will happen to the base. The base is y. So to get the answer, all what you're gonna do is you're gonna be adding the exponents. So that means you're gonna be adding 3 plus 1, and then the answer should be y to the fourth power. And this means that number 12 is gonna be multiplying x to the third power times y to the fourth power. You don't need to write the times, okay? As long as they are together, it means that you have multiplication between them, okay? And that's how we're gonna get the answer for all of this.